We bring on Dallas Stars broadcaster, Emmy Award winner, and the man who better pick the Stars to beat the Wild in the playoffs. It is Brien Rea. Good morning, sir.
That's like a veiled threat right off the top, gentlemen. Wow.
I thought it was pretty straightforward.
Is my co-host.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't veiled. It was a Tommy Boy 2x4 to the face. Not so much here, but here.
Exactly. So I got to ask this, and I know we're still waiting on information, but are you concerned that the Stars won the battle last night but lost the war potentially with the Miro injury?
Concerned, I think, is a fair word when you have players leave with injuries this time of year, and especially with the injuries Dallas already has piled up. However, they will skate around 12 noon today, and that will be our next opportunity to chat with Glenn Gulutzan. And I agree with Gully's demeanor last night, where get them looked at, see what the information says, and then you go from there. So concerned is a fair word. When your best player, arguably, or one of your two best players leaves the game and doesn't return, sure, you want to be concerned 3 games out from starting the playoffs. But let's let the information come in, and hopefully we have an update a little bit later today on the Miro situation.
And I know we were all curious with home ice essentially at stake. Did this feel like every bit of a playoff game that we thought it would?
Oh, totally. Yeah, whether you're at the game or watching the game. Look, I was at home watching the game, and watching it. It was a very interesting game for me, not just because of the home ice thing, but Minnesota just gave you a clear glimpse as to how they are going to play your first-round series. You know exactly what they are going to do. There are no state secrets. That is the MO and the game plan that is coming for you over the next 6 or 7 games in the first round. It ain't going to be 5, I'll tell you that. Over the next 6 or 7 games, that is what's coming on the other side of the ice. Now you know, and you make the adjustments to deal with it.
How blessed are we then as hockey fans to be able to get, that many games of that potential between those two?
I'd prefer 4.
So would I. If you're going to get through them and you got to deal with Colorado on the other side, I don't want to go through 6 or 7 games of that. I'd rather go through 4.
But it's so much fun to watch.
Colorado's going to dust whoever they're taking on at Nashville in that first round or whatever. So we'll see what happens. But from a hockey fan perspective, it's going to be an awesome series. I think it is going to boil down as the best series of the first round when it's all said and done. I really do believe that.
The physicality that I saw Mikko play with late in that game, and I feel like he's done this a lot this season. Kevin, we brought up recently, it looks more like Robertson's kind of grown into this role. He's like, I'll stick my nose in there and get into some fights and all this. That started to turn up throughout this season, and you talked about this, that 1 degree that Gulutzan talks about a lot. They do look like they are starting to gear up for a physical playoff run.
Yeah, and as you said, that is the attitude and the philosophy that Glenn Gulutzan wanted to bring to this team. And over the last handful of games, like they won the Calgary game, but they didn't look good for 2 periods. They've had games they've won, but it hasn't looked like the team they want to be entering the playoffs. The message has been clear that they're focused on the details of themselves and putting themselves in the right place. They aren't focused necessarily on the opponent. But I look at a game like that last night, and I think it can accelerate putting your details in place because you knew that opponent on the other side last night was coming for you with everything because Minnesota has to not just tie Dallas, they have to be 1 point better than Dallas if they wanted home ice. So you knew they were coming. And when you get into a game like that, the adrenaline spikes a little quicker. The senses get a little more intense. Everything just sort of locks in a little bit quicker when you get into a game like that. So I do think playing that game against that team, the way that team played that game, you almost build up scar tissue at an accelerated rate of, okay, now we know what we're in for. Let's go.
Okay, so that being said, you still have 3 to play. and you still need
a point.
You need something because this thing is not complete yet. So how do you get yourself back up for these opponents too?
That is going to be a very difficult challenge. But the bottom line is Dallas needs 2 points right now. They can get them. However they get them, they get them. But they do need 2 points right now. And Minnesota has a favorable schedule as well in their final three. I would hope the maturity and the presence of this team with what they've gone through understands these are three very winnable games. Well, Buffalo's going to be pretty tough. That's going to be a bonkers game at the end of the season. But the Rangers this weekend or in Toronto, both of those games are winnable. Don't dip your toe into the water. Go get it. And it's tough to get up for games against non-playoff teams that have nothing to play for. And the other thing too, it's not just they have nothing to play for; they can play so loose. And they can just throw Hail Mary bombs down the field as many times as they want because they have nothing to lose. That can be a tough team to play against because you're so used to playing within a structured system against the other team on the other side. So it's similar to the Calgary game. You're going to have to find a way to activate yourself and say, we need to go get these 2 points as soon as we can. I'd rather not let it linger into a third period, come back in overtime like they did against Calgary, but you're going to have to find a way to get yourself to that place. And we know Dallas can get themselves to that place. You just would like to see them take care of it in the first period on Saturday against the Rangers.
I loved the goal from Robertson last night. It was a Robertson type goal. It was beautiful, but that pass from Esa Lindell was fantastic. That his play last night, I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue he was the best player on the ice for the Stars with everything he did. The one caveat, and I'm going to use Esa as an example of what to expect in this series. You gave up 3 power play goals last night to Minnesota.
And 2 of them at the very end of periods.
Yes, but if Esa Lindell doesn't punch Ryan Hartman in that scrum, one of those power plays and power play goals is coming off the board. And that's where Dallas, I think, is going to have to be very careful in this series. Minnesota's going to start something every single scrum. They want you to do that. Don't throw the punch, give the face wash, grab the collar, keep it right at the line because they are trying to get you to throw that punch in those scrums. That's the one thing, and I'm using Esa Lindell as an example, but the entire Dallas Stars team, that's what you need to be careful of in this series because that's what Minnesota told you. They showed you everything they're going to do, and they were able to get 3 power play goals out of it. But once that game turned back to 5-on-5 and even strength, when Dallas got it to 3-2, if you watched that game last night, and I know I'm kind of shifting gears on where your question went on Esa Lindell, but when that game got to 3-2, now Minnesota had to worry about protecting a lead and not letting Dallas tie it.
Which they're good at.
Yeah.
They're pretty good at typically.
But it became a 5-on-5 game. It was no longer shenanigans after the whistle. It was no longer goading Dallas into penalties. Now it was 5-on-5 hockey. And Dallas was able to wear them down and get that to the finish line once that game shifted into 5-on-5 play. That's what I look at first in this series. If Dallas can keep it at 5-on-5, it's going to, I think, really benefit them. And it's going to benefit somebody like Esa Lindell, who has to kill every freaking second of every freaking penalty the Dallas Stars take, unless he's the one taking it. If you keep it at 5-on-5, somebody like him also stays fresh.
How long do you get the sense it usually takes to get a feel for an officiating crew in the series? Like, I hear what you're saying. Just don't engage in nonsense and hopefully you'll be fine. But, how long do you, let's say they do fall into that trap, how long does it take to get a feel for, they're going to call this really tight or not?
Yeah, they change the officiating crew every single game. So you have different referees and different ways the game's being called game to game in a series. I've always felt for players, they're so good at this. They should know after playing the first period what direction the game is going. They really should. The tough thing is when you determine how the game is going in the first period and you adjust to that as a player, and then it changes on you for some reason, that's where things get frustrating. But players, they're so good at understanding how a game is going to be called, and they can adjust to that. Usually in the first period, players should know how the game is going to occur.
I'm based on what you've told me about what Minnesota's plan is, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I suggest everybody go out and watch the season finale of Shoresy and how the North American hockey team went after the European group, and they just
set the tone.
Yeah, wear them out for 2 periods, and then try and get your goals in the third. Like, I think that's Minnesota's gonna be like, we're just gonna wear you out, engage in all the shenanigans. We're gonna get you when the referee's not looking, kind of stuff.
Should they also have potentially problematic thoughts about women's hockey?
No.
That's right. I'm aware of that part of the show.
It's a very fun show. That's the one thing I keep seeing over and over is, as he's saying, don't engage in the shenanigans. Those are the things that they waste your energy, as well as put you in a place in the box or in a place where you're in a little bit of extra trouble that you don't need to be in. So that's what But I think I can't wait for this series now. At this point.
No, it's going to be an excellent series. And by the way, every time somebody brings up Shoresy, I just have to all of a sudden go, for what? Because that might be my favorite line in the entire series.
Yes.
Just anytime. But it's not that you necessarily have to wait it out and get your goals in the third period. It's more keep the game at 5-on-5. If Dallas doesn't take those early penalties, you're not spotting Minnesota that early lead. And Dallas even got the first goal last night.
Yeah.
They scored the first goal, and then you take the penalties, and Minnesota finds a way to get themselves on top and ultimately push it to 3-1. And it's really hard because the Stars are not going to back down. They're not going to be pushed around. They've talked about that, and even Glenn Gulletson has talked about the hand-to-hand combat of a playoff series. And the Florida Panthers have been the example because they've won the last 2 Stanley Cups. They might have been the best team in the NHL of knowing where the line is, taking you all the way to the line, and then letting you cross it, and they turn away. They have been the best at that in the playoffs the last 2 years. And I think that's a similar direction that Minnesota is going to try and play this game, because I do believe at 5-on-5, Dallas is still the deeper team and still a little bit ahead of them. And then even when you looked at it at advanced metrics and the numbers there, Dallas has better numbers at 5-on-5 than Minnesota does. But Minnesota's power play this year is just as lethal as the Stars has been, especially adding Quinn Hughes. That is now, the power play is now a true weapon for Minnesota, and you learned that the hard way last night. That is an area where I think they can even up the series with the Stars.
But we have the best Hughes, Kevin. We have Cameron Hughes.
So, goal scorer.
Well done.
I like that.
By the way, I just got to say, how awesome are hockey smiles? Did you see any photos on social media after he scored that goal?
Yeah.
Like Jack Hughes when he scored the gold medal, that was a great hockey smile. Cameron Hughes went, hold my beer. That is an awesome hockey smile.
I love that. Now, I realize what the points and the numbers say. I want to put that to the side for just a second. Will the Dallas Stars have to beat the best 2 teams in the West just to make it to the Western Conference Finals?
Yes, they will. I don't see any way how Nashville or whoever ends up in that wild card spot is going to beat Colorado. I really don't. So, yes, Dallas will have to go through Minnesota. They will have to go through Colorado if they're going to get back to the Western Conference Final.
And do you think Colorado's primed to fall because they fell into the trap of probably winning the Presidents?
Yeah, well, they won it last night, so they have the kiss of death.
They're done.
Suckers.
I also believe if there is one team in the West that can beat Colorado, it is Dallas. I don't know about Vegas or Edmonton, because I think one of those 2 teams is ultimately going to get to the conference final on that side of the bracket. You know, if Colorado somehow gets to the conference final and they're that banged up, maybe that opens the door. But just right now today, when you look at all the teams that are lined up, if you had to pick one that was best set to knock off Colorado, I do believe it's Dallas.
Appreciate the time as always, good sir. We'll probably catch up with you again next week before that series officially kicks off.
It's going to be fun.
I love it.
For what?
Thank you very much, Brien Rea, right here on 105.3 The Fan.